Welcome back to another video. You are maybe new to this channel. My name is Sascha. I'm talking about all types of band stuff, how to not die in the very dangerous music industry, and for example about topics like today. What's it actually like to run a label? If you want to learn more about this stuff, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss anything. So let's go to today's video. I had my dear friend Michael over from the United States of America coming through Skype, and he is doing all sorts of cool things. For example, running a label which is distributing vinyl. So I thought a lot of people are like, whoa, it's the boom of vinyl. Whoa, it's the boom of, I don't know, I want to start a label no matter what. So I actually talked to him and asked him what it's actually like to run a label. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Thank you very much. Okay, so today we're talking about what it is actually like to run a label. Because nowadays, I was at an industry party like 1 month ago, and then, oh man, if I would buy a vinyl press, I would be fucking rich because everyone's buying vinyl now.
Of course.
And it's like, but people are treating it like it was the easiest thing now. Like you just do it, and then everything's gonna be fine. And I think, like with a lot of other stuff, that's not actually true, and no one actually knows what's behind that, and distribution and all of this other stuff. And a lot of young dudes think, let's just start a label just because they think it's cool. And I'm going to introduce you here real quick. This is Michael. Okay. You're a great friend at first. The drummer of Black Table, a drum teacher, van owner, CEO, that sounds official, of Silent Pendulum Records, drummer of Downfall of Gaia, drummer of Downfall of the number 12. The number 12 looks like you. And we're actually meeting next week. But it's easier to do it in a Skype thing. So we have met.
I agree.
Yeah, we have met the first time roughly, I think it's around this date. We met 3 years ago.
Exactly, almost 3 years ago when both of our bands were touring together.
Yeah, almost to the day.
Yeah.
And it took like 3 to 4 days and everything. Everyone was pretty cool with each other, which was great.
Yeah, it was a very good atmosphere.
Yeah. So what have you done today?
What have I done today?
Yeah.
I actually sent some records this morning. I also packed some stuff for Europe because I'm doing some trading. I usually do that with Moment of Collapse and also the band Hexus. So I'm bringing some records when I fly over there. I'm taking some records here for my distro.
Okay.
So it's still pretty early. It's 12:30 here, so the day's getting started. I got rehearsal later, so it's pretty smooth, easy day.
Rehearsal for a band?
Number 12.
Okay.
Number 12 Looks Like You. We're writing our debut full-length record with a new band because they've been broken up for 8 years.
Okay. So you don't have a debut yet, but you played with Dillinger on their farewell
exactly.
tour. That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. I shouldn't say debut. I mean, it's the return record. It's the debut of the two new members, my bass player DJ and I. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're doing a lot of things. Is there a main focus? Like I have 17 things going on, and I don't have a main thing that I'm focusing on. I'm just doing everything. And you're doing a lot of stuff, and I just wanted to know what's like, do you have a main focus right now, or is it the same? You have 12 things going on, and you kind of trying to balance everything.
Yeah, I think it goes like this. It depends on the project, depends where a band is in their cycle. For example, right now, Downfall of Gaia, we're still doing our touring cycle for the last record, Atrophy. That's what I'm going to see. I'm going to see you next week. It's the last leg of this tour. And then my priority this whole summer is going to be practicing and writing the new Downfall of Gaia record and the new number 12 Looks Like You record.
Okay, amazing.
But I think it's similar to what you do. I mean, I have a bunch of things going on, and depending on tours or when it's time to write or record, something becomes a priority or something else becomes a priority.
And then you just push it to the forefront, and then
Exactly.
so I want to double down on this talk on silent pendulum, because I
Okay.
want to empathize the thing of running a label and what it's actually like, because I have no idea. And people are going to be yelling, yeah, you should have talked to the A&R of blah, blah, blah and Nuclear Blast, or I don't know. But I think there's actually no difference, because everyone's trying to sell music after all. And so do
Of
you.
course.
And so do you. And I should definitely talk to someone of those labels at some point. But you are running a New York-based vinyl label and distro specializing in black, experimental, and post-metal. I took that from Bandcamp? No.
Bandcamp or Facebook, probably, yeah.
And I think that's just as good. So when did you start that, and why? And was it always the same name?
It wasn't always the same name. It started out of necessity. When we released the first Black Table EP, Sentinel, about 4 or 5 years ago, it was our first album, and we released it ourselves. So I did all the emails, the payment, the contact with United Pressing, which I believe is in the West Coast of the U.S., and the test presses, blah blah. So I did all that, and then after that, I realized I kind of like all the work behind what a record label does. I read a couple books about how to start your own label. So I got a name, I got a Facebook page, everything. And then my first real official release was this band called North from Arizona. And my favorite record of theirs was never pressed on vinyl. So my initial concept was to release records that are either out of print or have never been released on vinyl, or could not be released because of finances, something like that.
Okay.
So that was my first idea. And North, their label, didn't want to release it, so I contacted them and they agreed. So that was kind of how I started my label. It was out of necessity, because I personally wanted a copy of this vinyl, and it
Okay.
didn't exist. So I decided to help them create that.
Awesome. Do you print stuff, or do you produce stuff yourself, or do you buy it from plants?
A little bit of both. Up to this point, I've worked with plants primarily. The last 4 or 5 releases I've done through Pirates Press in the Czech Republic. They've been really good to me. And now I'm noticing for certain releases to do their minimum of 250 copies is just not viable, with the finances and with the cost. So also, if it's a brand new band, they might not even sell 100 copies in a year or something, even if they're touring. So my new, for the next couple of releases, my new idea and new structure is to get 50 or 100 copies made at a different plant, and then I want to silk screen the jackets myself.
Okay.
So I have a few friends that do silk screening, so it's going to be a little bit more custom. It'll be a little bit, more artistic and more of a collector's item as well.
Awesome. So your main focus is probably to first release awesome stuff that you like yourself. And where do you want that to go? Like, you have seven or eight. You've done 7 or 8 vinyls for until now, or is it more?
I think I've worked on 12 releases. So some of them wasn't only Silent Pendulum. It was a co-release, or I ended up working with them after it was already released in, let's say, Europe. I would be the U.S. distributor.
Okay.
So, but I think you're correct. Like 7 or 8 I've done solely as my project and released only under the Silent Pendulum umbrella. So, and to answer your other question, yeah, I mean, my primary goal is to just release music I love. And, half of my releases are bands I've either played in, recorded with, or are my bands currently. Okay. So it's partially I'm searching for new music that can't get out there, and also the other part is, just my business, my bands.
Yeah, the cool thing is, if you look at your web presence and you look at the Silent Pendulum page, you wouldn't know that it was started out of necessity, because you are releasing your own bands, which is a great thing. So if someone who doesn't know the label comes to the site, it's like, hey, that's a cool label, and they have no idea that you're the drummer of this band that is released on the label.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It happens quite frequently. People go, "Oh, wait a second, that's you? You're that label?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me."
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you started to scale, like when you started the second release and the third release, so I think you probably had something in mind. Oh, this is actually going to be a thing. Like I'm going to run a label. And what is it actually like versus what you thought it would be like? I think you have to stock stuff and you have to pay for more stuff than you thought you would have to pay for, because running a business is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I think like everyone knows, any business, any band, you have one idea and then there's always costs you would never anticipate. So I think that was the biggest learning curve over the last few years is, shipping materials. You think you have enough, you think you estimated correctly, priced things correctly, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, I need extra bubble wrap, or I've only bought 2 rolls of tape, I need 20 rolls of tape. There's things you can't estimate. So there's a learning curve with that. And then I knew it would be a lot of work, but 2 things I didn't anticipate are how time consuming packing records is. Even, my most successful release was the first pressing of Rosy Red by the Number 12 Looks Like You, and we sold out in 24 hours. It was never done on vinyl. It was their first album, and the whole band, all 4 of us, packed all 500 records, and it took us, I don't know, maybe a week.
Wow.
Because we would do it after work. We would do like 4 hours one night, and to individually pack 500 records with download codes, to take the vinyl out and put it into the plastic sleeve, taping, printing. I did all the addresses from home, just with a scale, for my laptop, so I don't have to go to the post office.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely time consuming, and it's a labor of love. But yeah, that was something I didn't anticipate, was how much time it would take, and also how much space it takes. How much room you need to store your back catalog, to store all the supplies. I started getting vinyl shipments on pallets, so I needed a garage. They would come and set, this whole thing.
Yeah.
But so those are the 2 things I didn't expect. But it's still been a lot of fun to learn kind of little tricks here and there.
So where are you running all of this? Like, do you have an extra space? And I know you're renting out some stuff. Did you take a part of that real estate, or did you have a practice space where you put all of that stuff?
Yeah, it's been the last few years. It's been all over. So depending where I'm living, I have a property. I told you about that, I believe. So I had a garage there. I was storing some stuff, but I'm renovating that space now to make it into a practice space and to my label distro. So now I have half my stuff at my bass players, half of it at the practice space. Some are in like friends' basements, parents' basements. So it's kind of pieced together right now. But the goal is in 6 months to have a full distro location with a rehearsal room, and people can actually even come and see all of the releases, something like this.
Awesome. So you want to have an actual office as well, like where you can work. You go there and then you do label stuff.
Exactly.
And you have a room for that.
That's the goal.
It's very important to have a dedicated place for work.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's a good thing to have it out of your living space. It's not that cool as people think to work in your living space.
I think it's very romantic to work from home, but then when you start crossing those lines, it gets a little, I don't know, uncomfortable, or you can't be as productive. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you have to do you're starting to do dishes. Then there's some other stuff in the basement, and then wow, it's 1 hour. It's gone. Never getting that hour back. Fighting with that right now and looking for an office as well.
Yeah.
So what's the most favorite part about the whole label operation?
My favorite part is the interaction with people, with fans, with other music lovers, especially on tour. I'll bring for the US, I'll bring my whole distro on tour, and meeting people who have ordered every release I've done, and just having that connection with people. And then also connecting, like we talked about earlier, connecting the dots, being like, oh, you play drums in this band. Oh, and you're also in the label. Thank you. The people are very, very appreciative of, records that were never pressed on vinyl before, especially the one I was telling you about before, Rosy Red by the Number 12. the biggest reason I pushed to press that was because I wanted it and it didn't exist. So I put a lot of work into the colors, a lot of work into the artwork, making sure it was 180 gram and thicker cardboard, matte finish. So yeah, I mean, I think that's my favorite part is just interacting with people and creating something that hasn't been available before.
Yeah, it's such a cult, like especially if you, I don't know how it's in the US, never been there, but if you're traveling around those smaller clubs and bigger clubs as well, like until a couple of years ago, you had only band stickers everywhere, and now it's labels like you run, and it's a whole cult, and people are uh, interacting with labels like if they were bands. And that's, I'm not a vinyl guy. I own one single vinyl, and but I think that's pretty cool, and I could really imagine how you appreciate that people are actually talking about that and they have in mind what it's actually like, and they appreciate the music and the piece of the physical release, and that's a pretty cool thing. The whole I do not want to call it a trend because it's so cool that I want it to stick around and that people who are dealing with this have a sustaining thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a little bit of a trend, but also I think I really like that bands and record labels are still trying to maintain that physical merchandise aspect. Because once you lose that, then it's really, I mean, I think you lose.
It's going to be
a lot
really
of.
weird. I mean, what are we going to sell?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
What's going to happen?
here's a download code. That's it. There's
That's
nothing else.
Here's your 7 shirts. Here's the code. You can, and you get the
That's it.
3D printing files. I don't know. It's going to be really weird.
It's gonna be weird, yeah.
But I mean, musicians adapt now, and I don't know whatever will come, we'll all adapt again. I think.
Exactly.
What's your least favorite part about it? And I think it's the nope. You kind of like the packing because you know it's going out. I think.
I'm very meticulous, so I love packing. I'm I think one of my problems is I'm very I think controlling over the business. So I want to make sure it's packed correctly because even if you pack the vinyl a little bit loosely, then the vinyl it'll move and it'll break the packaging, it'll break the jacket, and then you have to send another one anyway. So you have to be very careful how you pack a vinyl as opposed to a CD or a T-shirt. It doesn't matter; it can't really break. But a vinyl, if it's not extremely tight, then it'll break. So yeah, actually, I really like packing, but my least favorite part, I think would be just the wait times. Actually, because with CDs, with recording, I mean, you record an album, you get the mix, you get the master, and you're like, all right, cool, it's done. But then with vinyl, like you were saying, you went to that industry party. There's only a few companies that have these machines to make records,
Yeah.
and they're really backed up because it's becoming, like you said, a trend. And so, from the day you order to the day you get it at your house or business, it's 3 to 6 months, depending,
Wow.
if there's any problems with the master, any problems with the test pressing. More like 3 to 4 months, but so that's my least favorite part is the waiting game.
So if for anyone watching or listening, all those industry people, they said like if you could buy a vinyl press and you could offer to all the labels, just set up an email, tell them, hey, I can deliver 100 vinyls within 2 weeks, and people are going to smash your door because the people are waiting for vinyls all the time, and not everyone needs 1,000 copies, but some people are just looking for 150 or 200. And if you can assure that you can bring 150 to 200 vinyls at that specific point, people are going to kiss your hand and give you money. And I was like, holy shit, there's so much to that whole vinyl thing that I haven't thought about. And it kept me going, and I somehow wanted to implement it on my channel, and then I thought about you.
Yeah, it's an interesting industry because there are certain parts of the process that are not easy to expand. For example, like cleaning the machines or even making the master plates and stuff like this. So that's why they can't just hire anybody. You have to be trained in certain aspects of it. So it's a little more difficult. And what you just spoke about, there are a few companies I'm talking to. One of them is called, I have to double check, Precarian Cuts, also from Arizona. The drummer of North, the band I put out, works for them. And they hand lathe cut records to order. So if you only want 20 copies, they do it. But of course, with something like this, it's hand done. It's more time consuming. So the price per unit goes up a lot more than, for example, a machine cut one if you get 1,000 copies, you know?
That's
So it exists, but it's more expensive. So there's, you know, not that big of a margin to make, to even break even or to make a profit.
Are you selling CDs as well, or are you just limited on vinyl?
I was very against it for my first releases, but then I kind of was not forced, but a couple releases really wanted CDs, including one of my bands. Yeah, the number 12 Looks Like You. We needed CDs. People were asking for it, so I ended up just getting them done. Yeah.
It's a cool thing about metal. People want CDs. So
it's pretty cool for bands. I love it.
It's cool. They go to concerts and buy CDs.
Yeah.
I don't know how people that are like 10 years younger than us, who's starting to going to metal shows right now, I don't know if they're still buying CDs. I have to look at the merch stand. If they're younger bands, I really want to know how they consume from the get-go. Because in my head, they're all living in Spotify playlists, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's mainly true. What I've seen also, a lot of the younger bands, the people 10 years younger than us, even the consumers, it's a lot of Spotify or Pandora, whatever, iTunes music, stuff like this. And at concerts, they'll buy a hoodie or a T-shirt or a zip-up, a poster, flags, but they won't buy the actual CD or vinyl because they have no use or no means of playing it.
Yeah, they're just practical. They're not romantic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's I mean, it's where it's going after all. But we're still living. I mean, we're still got 100 years to live.
Yeah, we're still alive and we're still romantic. So
yeah. You talked about reading books about starting a label. Do you maybe remember one or two of them?
I think if you Google or Amazon how to start a record label, the first book that comes up is actually called that. Or maybe it's called So You Want to Start a Record Label. I would have to look up the author for you. But it was pretty informative. It was about 5 or 10 years ago I read it, and it was the 5th edition, so there's probably more editions now. And they were talking still about MySpace and still about the beginning of Facebook. It was before Bandcamp when I read it. So they're constantly updating because, yeah, even in 5 years, the platforms are switching, but a lot of the general concepts are still, you know, maintained within the music industry. So any of that, I'm honestly, any book based on how to start a record label will be helpful if anyone's trying to get into it.
Even if it's just one chapter.
Yeah.
I mean, most practical nonfiction books, sometimes it's just one chapter that's pretty helpful, or that you take away, or that you still think about in a month. Yeah, so if you are living around New York area, are you closer to the city, or are you upstate from the city, New York?
Technically, I'm considered downstate.
Downstate.
You know,
because there's a down as well.
It's the suburbs of New York City, but people from New York City will say anything that is above Manhattan is upstate. So it depends who you ask.
Okay.
But if you have New York, I'm way south, almost in New York City. It's about an hour away. There's trains and buses to Manhattan and Brooklyn. So I still have woods here, but it's also accessible to New York City and also Albany, stuff like this.
Okay. So if you're living around that area, need drum lessons, you're still giving drum lessons, I think?
Yes. Yeah.
Your website says so. Yeah. Check out Michael's website. Everything is down below in the comments. And that's all I've noted for these. I do not do these 90-minute conversations right now at the moment. Keep it short and consumable and informative.
Yeah.
And yeah, so thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I can't wait to meet next week. That's
Yep.
that's what I wrote in
Sounds
my
good.
document, so I don't forget.